Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sean Lang. Now, I've spent several years building and operating a digital agency that's grown past 50 people, which has shaped how I think about the things that really matter when things start to get complex. Today, I'm joined by Nick Desrocher, founder of GroClix. Now, GroClix is a Connecticut-based website design and marketing partner that helps small and growing businesses launch websites, run creative marketing, and turn visitors into customers. Nick, great to have you on, man.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Sean. I appreciate it. Excited for the episode and excited to learn a little bit from you today. So,
Absolutely. So, what Nick is referring to is we're actually trying something new. This is our first episode. It's going to be a little bit more of a consultative approach. Nick is a little bit earlier in the agency journey, and he's a listener of the show, and he's a sponge. And so, we're going to get to know GroClix, his agency, a little bit more, and look for opportunities and insights that maybe we can kind of offer Nick to just help him optimize what he's got and grow it into an awesome, strong agency. So, Nick, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. So let's just start at let's get a snapshot of your agency. Like, how long has the agency been around for now?
It's close to 2 years, which is crazy. I feel like I just started it, just getting wrapped up in the day to day, I guess. But yeah, I actually graduated from college from the University of Hartford with my master's a couple years ago. I was in a 3+1 program, so I kind of cranked that out and then started applying for jobs, marketing jobs, and then as I was doing that, I kind of just was like, I had a couple family friends that were looking for some basic marketing help. And I started doing that and I just kind of fell in love with it. And I realized that I think it was a tough decision because I had just gotten my master's and, the typical kind of thing that you're supposed to do is you get your degree and then you go find a job. But for me, I was just so into it that for me, it was worth the whole experience of just starting my own agency, starting my own business, over the money in the beginning. So, yeah, it's been close to 2 years and it's been a fun 2 years so far.
At what point did you know that you wanted to start an agency? Because it's not really a typical path that most people take.
Yeah, I remember in one of my digital marketing classes at school, um, we did kind of like a simulation and we had to run Google ads essentially. And I was able to like perform really well in it and I loved it. Like I just kind of, it was very intriguing to me. Like I've always been a creative thinker, I just, you know, try to let my creativity, come out in that sense. But I remember that was kind of like the first time I was put in a real world situation where you had to run ads, and it was fun to be able to like track the results. And I'm a big analytics guy, so that was the other part that was fun for me to be able to go in and look at the click through rates and bounce rates and all those good metrics. So I think that was kind of the first thing that was the first hint to me. And then when I was ultimately making that decision after school, it was little things like that I was thinking about where I was like, well, okay, I've done this before. Again, it was a little bit different. It was a simulation. And then I also had an internship at this company called Nassau Financial Group. It was an insurance company in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was a lot of social media, a lot of creative stuff over there. And I think what I learned over there too was that, I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of very smart people when it came to marketing and digital marketing. So I learned a lot over there. And I think that kind of solidified everything for me. It gave me the confidence to say, hey, I can do this. I mean, it was a little bit different. It was not an agency, of course, but it was just the principle of hey, I can help a company grow through marketing.
Yeah, I remember that feeling when you first started. You kind of feel like you've like found fire. You're like, oh, I can
Yeah.
do something
So
with this.
yeah, it's awesome.
Where did your first clients come from?
So I mean, the first couple that I helped were the family friends, realtors, some home services, but then first couple clients were all local, and it was through just kind of organic content that I started putting out there, LinkedIn and putting stuff out on Facebook. I wasn't even really trying to sell directly. Of course, I was, but I wasn't saying, "Hey, here are my services. Here are my services. Come buy this from me." I didn't really believe in that. I just think that, as you know, it's this industry can be so concentrated. Starting in a marketing agency, you can kind of mask it to be something that's real a lot easier than starting, a roofing company. It's a
Mhm.
little bit easier. So I think that we all are aware of that in a certain sense that it can become such a concentrated area, and it's hard to stand out unless you have that portfolio and the case studies. So for me, I just wanted to share, things that I was learning, things that, I thought that could just little marketing tips that I thought could help small business owners. And it was through that where I think my name started getting out there, and a couple of people started reaching out to me. And recently, it's kind of been this similar strategy, just kind of sharing information, being open on the fact that, hey, I don't know everything, but here are the things I'm learning. Here are the people that I'm helping, and here are some designs, some case studies, and just kind of have been growing from that.
Cool. So approximately 2 years in now, how many clients do you have?
Around 14. It's the reason I say around 14 is just because I think it's part of the reason I'm on this podcast today is, I'm working on my systems and working on and making sure I'm organized in the sense that, I know, what I'm spending my time on and which clients need the most time and which clients, you need a different type of approach with. So yeah, it's 14 technically, but kind of onboarding a couple new ones as we speak. So
Okay, yeah, we're going to get into some of that for sure. Let's sort of complete the picture here. So, what services are you offering these clients currently?
yeah, so I always try to start with a new website redesign, and I think that I guess, and the reason I'm saying I'm taking this approach is because I love to start with that regardless. If somebody asks for social media, um, or asks for SEO, I'm not looking to grow my business with somebody who has a website that's managed by somebody else and trying to implement SEO through that. I just think I want to take that cohesive approach on managing that digital that aspect, I guess. So website redesign, SEO, and social media are the three big ones right now. Obviously, if you're in this industry, you know that SEO is kind of expanding out to a bunch of different names, and answer engine optimization, and there's 100 different names you can call it. But so that service I think has been undergoing like the most change for me, and trying to also help clients show up in ChatGPT, Gemini, and all that good stuff.
Cool. What's your delivery model? Is it, do you have a team? Who does most of the work?
That's me. I do subcontract out some stuff. I think that recently it's been a little bit more prominent for me as I've become more. It's just have been busier, and it definitely has been stressful because I just have the mentality that I want to help everybody to my to the max, right? And I want to make sure that everybody is kind of benefiting from these services, and I'm providing value. So I try not to stretch myself too thin. And I think it's getting to the point where it's getting tough to do everything by myself.
Yeah, it. Every agency reaches a point where the founder kind of realizes that they are the agency, and they're kind of like just trying to hold everything together, and you kind of have to, yeah, basically take that next step, which can definitely be a little freaky. But that's part of the game. What do you
Yeah.
feel currently? What do you feel is like your biggest challenge, or maybe your top three challenges right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one is having steady onboarding, because I think I spend so much time educating and just like the little things, and there's so many little things that shouldn't be big things that turn into big things. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because even though it's not as substantial as a couple other big problems, like I'll talk about a couple of my services, but when I've learned myself that when I spend, 3 hours onboarding somebody to connect their, Facebook Business Manager, right? Like, and there's 100 different names for whether they all call, and they don't know if they have a manager account, or what's the difference between Meta and Facebook. Like, just the little things on
Right.
getting it situated so we can just start strategizing and start building your website. So I think the onboarding process, making sure I have a clean onboarding process. Another thing too is so one service in particular, social media management, I think it works super well for a couple of, when I say a couple, a few of the clients that I work with. And every other client, I do kind of emphasize to them early on that, hey, with this current budget, if you're not looking to spend money on ads, or you're not looking to, do a lot of in-house organic content, showing your face, talking about the business, it's going to be a little bit hard to achieve the growth you're looking for. And when they still ask for the service, and then we do mostly organic, whether it's static posts, and then they don't see the growth that they believe happens with that type of social media management, it's a a tough thing to continue to sell. At least for me, like I don't want to keep saying let's keep doing this if you're looking for growth. I want to offer a different solution. So I think that's probably the other big thing I'm struggling with is it works very well for some clients that are, in a certain stage of business. If they're a $5 million business and they're not looking to double in the next 2 years, it works very well for awareness and, keeping people engaged. But for other ones and for startups, that service can be a bottleneck sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've identified something that I think we're probably going to talk about a lot. So there's, I guess, maybe two concepts at play here right now, which is, are we spread too thin with a number of different services, or maybe like sort of that outlier service? And I would argue that especially at your stage, you might be. But
Yeah.
another thing just sort of popped up, which is you mentioned that the service actually does provide value, but only to a specific segment of clients. And so then that has me want to ask the question to you, like, who is your ICP? Have you thought about who your ICP is? And if you define your ICP, then you're basically also creating a much larger list of who you don't work with. So currently, right now, if you were to look at your roster, do we have a defined ICP?
So when it comes to my ICP, the thing that I understand that is the biggest problem is that I don't have a vertical. And I know that's one thing I've learned, that if I'm trying to create repetition and trying to create systems, it becomes a lot harder to create those if I don't have this vertical. So like that question obviously brings up a good point for me, where, I went in this transition from college straight to the agency. So for a 22-year-old at the time, it's, hey, I believe I can provide this great marketing service to anybody that comes up to me and offers me money. I think that was really the big thing for me. It was like, if they were going to offer me, if there was an opportunity for me to give somebody a proposal and say, I'm going to help you do this, I'm always going to say yes. And that's what it was early on. And I think now it's, we have this conversation, and the fact that I can't clearly define, okay, this is my ICP, that's when it's like, okay, well, which clients are benefiting from this? And when I go through, if, we're talking about home services, or if we're talking about, restaurants, is a couple that I work with, I've started to realize that here are the common themes, the common patterns in certain industries or certain clients, and then here are the other common patterns in these clients. So I think that was obviously, and it currently is, a struggle, having that like defined vertical, the defined ICP. Um, I will say that it definitely has become, my approach has become a lot more focused, where I'm a lot more comfortable now, and it, end result, has made me a better salesperson in a meeting, knowing that if this person doesn't want to work with me, I'm perfectly okay with that, because maybe it's not a great fit. But I think I'm still in that situation that if I tell myself, hey, I'm just going to do home services, and then, a medical reaches out to me, I'm probably going to take that call. And then if I believe I can help them and they offer me something, or I offer them something, I would still be tempted. So I'm in that weird stage, I think, of, trying to drive revenue so I can scale and hire people and get those resources. But I'm also in the stage of, I want to just help as many people as possible to, the absolute max.
This is, I think, one of the hardest, one of the most common, yet one of the hardest struggles at the size that you're at. I mean, and my agency, which is quite large now and is very, differentiated and niche down. But when we first started, we were in the exact same state as you. We had realtors, we had plumbers, we had e-commerce brands, we had like vacation booking companies. Like it was like all across the board, and we knew without a shadow of a doubt that if this person had a marketing problem, they were a small business. We knew how to solve it, and so we wanted to help them.
Yeah.
But it does eventually create chaos. It makes it very, very difficult to scale. It makes it harder to train people on your team because they're having to learn to reinvent the wheel every single time, just like you are. If you look at what you've got going on so far, I mean, where do you feel right now? Where's the most obvious pattern? Actually, you know what? Let me back up from that. even before thinking about the most obvious pattern, let's talk about the concept of the soft ICP. So a lot of people, when they think about how they need to niche down, they think that it's like this binary decision where like one day I service everyone and then the very next day I say no to everyone and I only service this one type of client. And I sure hope that one of them comes through the door because otherwise I'm not going to eat this month. And
Yeah.
that's one way to do it. I wouldn't do it that way at all. The concept of the soft ICP is basically first starting by looking at your existing roster, looking for a significant pattern. And we're looking for either, um, ideally, it's going to be all of these, but we're looking for clients that are easy to work with and pay on time. And then we're also looking for clients that get a lot of value out of the service that we're delivering, and the service is actually worth more money to them because we're solving a big problem. And then the third one is on your side is, do you enjoy working with them, and are they profitable for you, and are they efficient for you, in that you're able to create enough value without putting an inordinate amount of
Yeah.
of time and effort into servicing those. So, and we don't always have patterns, but at 14 clients, and you've been doing this for 2 years, you probably have at least some emerging patterns for what a soft ICP would be. And I say it's a soft ICP because, again, we're not drawing a line in the sand and saying only this now forever. We're basically we want to we want to test. We're marketers and we want to treat our agency no differently, right? So if we look at your roster, and if you notice an emergent pattern with one type of client, and I know that like you work with, high ticket local businesses, you mentioned a crane business, a specialty contractor, home services, landscaping, restoration. There is this sort of like outdoor trades kind of
Yeah.
pattern, like maybe um,
Yeah.
if we can also find those patterns of impact and ease of work and ability to charge them, then what we say is okay. So if I go to GroClix website right now, it's very wide open. It's saying like we work with Connecticut-based businesses.
Yep.
So we say, well, we're not going to change that. That's gonna remain the same. But what we are going to do is we're going to take all of the expertise that we have based on this one pattern we've noticed, and we're going to create an additional landing page on the website specifically targeted against this segment.
Yep.
We're going to actively get testimonials from the clients that we have because it's a service that works for them and they like it. We're going to build a case study or two, and we're basically going to create an additional page accessible from the main page on the website that just shows authority within this space.
Yeah.
So that's our soft ICP. So we're not aligning the entire agency towards that, but we're giving it now its own its own bedroom in the house. So
Yeah.
if you want to say that, and then every single time you have a conversation with a lead that is within that niche, now already you are positioned much better. You actually have this landing page. You can think about positioning your service as more impactful. You can think about positioning your service at a higher price point because you actually have the social proof. You show that you put in the reps and you show that you know their specific problem. And you might also look at your services, which right now is web design and development, SEO, and social media management. And you might say, well, for these companies, the ones that I like to work with, the majority of them don't seem to get as much value out of social media management. So for this specific soft ICP, I'm only going to be talking to them about web design and development and SEO, since those operationally go hand in
Yeah.
hand anyway and are much more efficient. And since it's a soft ICP, you can still do everything else you were doing before, knowing that there's a trade-off and you're adding chaos, but you're okay right now because you need to grow the agency.
Yep.
But you might find that as you start focusing more on the soft ICP, and if your gut is correct that this is actually where you should align yourself, you're going to find that you start signing more of these soft ICPs,
Yeah.
and that you're able to charge more for them because you actually are positioned. You're positioned as someone who serves them specifically, and they're going to pay more because they're going to get more value, more
Yeah.
perceived value, which actually also means more value in general, because you speak to them about their specific problems, even if their problems are exactly the same as most other small business problems, but they're branded in a way that it is specific to an outdoor tradesperson, and no one else is going to get it if they don't get like
Yeah.
you also find that like a lot of these different small businesses are very tribal, and that like I think about when I was doing a home renovation on my house, and I had every different trades person here working on different aspects, and they all turn up their noses at each other and talk crap about each other. Like, the framers hate the electricians, and the electricians hate the plumbers, and they all
Yeah.
hate the drywall guys because they leave a huge. And they all kind of like have this. They get their back up. They have this very tribal mentality of like nobody does what I do. Nobody gets it. And so you have to think about aligning with a soft ICP is also sort of playing into that, being like, no, like
Yeah.
GroClix is the guy that I would hire because they actually understand the type of thing that
Yeah.
we need to do, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So soft ICP, what that allows you to do is if you find that this soft ICP starts to get a little bit more solidified, you might find that again there might be a pattern in which service provides the most value. You might find that the majority of the value of what you're offering is coming from, maybe it's just coming from SEO. But again, you mentioned that in order for you to do SEO at the quality that you want to, you also like to have control over the website. So maybe at this point, based on the soft ICP, it tells you we're going to be sunsetting social media management entirely because it's actually not what people want, or it's not what they want to pay for.
Yeah.
One thing that we like to do as agencies and as marketers is we like to throw everything in the kitchen sink at the clients because we just want to help them so much. But a
Yeah.
lot of these things don't necessarily add a ton of value aside from they make us feel good because we're like, I can do this for you and I can do that for you. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day,
100%.
if we're offering web design and development and SEO and that is driving 90% of the leads, and then social media management is just an extra 10%, why don't we just cut the social media
Yeah.
management and give a little bit more time towards the thing that we know does work, simplifies you operationally, simplifies your offer and your positioning, and makes it a little bit easier to have those sales conversations.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's such a good point, and I remember the first website ever, launched for GroClix. It's like you you hover over services, and it was like 150 of them, and it was just like every specific service you can offer in marketing. And I think every month that goes by, or every quarter that has gone by, I've learned that it's just so much more attractive to be able to go to a business and say, "Hey, I can almost guarantee you." I hate saying I promise. I hate saying I guarantee because every time it takes a different amount of time, but to say I guarantee I can help you with this service, right? If to be able to get to that point, to look at a business and having a soft ICP like that, to be able to say, hey, I've worked with a business that's been in this situation, and say I can do this same exact thing again for you. And I think in my situation, every new business is different, where I have to spend 3 hours on research for them to see if I can help.
Yep.
But I think what you said is such a good point, and it resonated with me. Is as a digital marketing agency or a marketing partner, I think that because I have the capabilities to offer social media and to offer SEO and to offer ads, like whatever it is, I feel like it's almost like a convenience service where that, hey, I know that as a business owner, you look around at other business owners and see other business owners are posting on social media and other business owners are doing this. So I like to be that person that in my head, I'm doing you a service by simplifying this and streamlining it for you by having me control all of this for you, when sometimes maybe they just don't. And I've picked up on the patterns and have told some businesses, hey, you don't need social media for what you're trying to do. Like if you're strictly focusing on, vendor relationships, or you have like distributors, like you don't they're not on Facebook, right? And I think that's the nice thing, and talking it out loud with you has been able to kind of like already help me identify that, okay, well, it's like you said, if it's just 10% of new business for them, why don't we just invest a little bit more in what's actually working? So I don't know, it's such a good
Exactly.
point.
Exactly. And I don't remember who said it. I've heard it from a few different places. Um, and I would agree that this is actually uh, so hard to operate or so hard to execute in real life, but in theory, this is dead on. And the people who do this do win. Is you shouldn't offer more than one service until you're at $1 million. You just shouldn't. It's so much easier operationally to offer one service. It's so much easier to sell one service because you're looking for one specific person with that specific problem, and then you have
Yeah.
that specific service, right? It's just in terms of efficiency and simplicity, it's much easier than if you're trying to scale to $1 million, and so you've got web design and development. Well, guess what? That is going to become its own department with multiple people. SEO, same with that. Social media
Yeah.
management, same with that. And so you're actually tripling the amount of complexity at the agency, tripling the amount of SOPs you need, tripling the amount of systems you need, tripling the amount of people that you need and that you need to manage. And management does eventually become a full-time job as an agency owner. And the ones where it's not are the ones that are struggling the most because your team actually needs leadership. They
Yeah.
need management. They need to be pointed in the right direction. So I think that is an absolutely critical and crucial piece.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And I actually you talking about remodeling a house, I think is a great example because I think marketing is a little bit more intricate in the sense that some business owners don't even they have to be educated on SEO, for example, even though it's really important. But I think if you're building a house, you know that you're going to need an electrician and you're going to need a plumber. Where in marketing, a lot of these people think I can just hire a marketer and they'll take care of every avenue. Like, but that's just not how it works. And I think that that's been the part for me. It's like, oh, if I don't do this service, I have to educate them on. Oh, you have to hire somebody else if you want that service. So I love it. I love those points. It definitely resonates.
So think about this. You're about the 100th agency owner I've talked to who says that client onboarding is a struggle. I've had multiple episodes on the importance of onboarding and how onboarding in the agency space is generally internal, and it's basically just our code word for setup, and that's it. Onboarding is where onboarding has two pieces. Onboarding has to have the internal piece, which is like,
Yep.
what do we need to do to set things up so that the client is going to be successful? But the onboarding is also the external piece, which is what is the client experiencing from the minute they sign the contract with us and they paid us? What are they experiencing? And we usually kind of forget that part because we're so focused on the weeds. And that's because
Yeah.
there's so many weeds. We've planted so many weeds and we're having to deal with the weeds now. So think about if you could get really, really efficient with as few services as possible, get really, really damn good at those services, and then go all in on making an amazing client onboarding experience because it's simple. Then that client
Yeah.
onboarding experience could also include a bunch of really, really high value resources that educate the client along the way. So while you're actually setting
Yeah.
things up in the background, they're getting educated on what you're doing and why it's important so that by the time everything is running full swing, they understand the value. Because that's another huge thing that agencies just completely suck at. And
Yeah.
up until the 8-figure level still, which is like we get so enamored with all of the things that we do, but we don't really communicate it to the client in a way. Or we communicate it to the client, but the client doesn't know what any of it is because they're not technical and they're
Yeah.
not marketers. And so they go, wow, they're sure sending me a lot of stuff. I hope that I get leads one day. Right.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
understand the value in it. And actually, that brings me to another point that I wanted to bring up, which is back to that conversation of, us agency owners want to offer as many different services as possible to a client because we know how to do it. We need to remember that at the end of the day, the client doesn't care about the volume, the amount of services that we're providing. They really hire us to solve a problem. There's an outcome that they want. And so if we look at like there's an agency that I've started working with recently, and they offer Meta ads, Google ads, email marketing, SEO, CRO, web development, and also starting to handle like client messaging and social media, like all these things. And I think that the client up front or that the client is happy that they're getting all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're charging a client a couple grand and you're doing 8 services and there's zero ROI because we're spread tooth and doing all these 8 services, the client is going to fire you anyways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Versus if you can come to them and say, we charge X amount, which is maybe a little bit much for this one service, but that's because we go all in on this one service. And then you can
Yeah.
actually deliver or exceed what they're looking for based on those outcomes. That wins all day long. The client doesn't
Yeah.
care about the checklist items and all of our busy activity. The client actually just cares that they get that
Yeah.
result that they want and that outcome. And that's one thing. Again, I'm hopping all over the place here, but that's another thing is that and because I've lived this, we start to add additional services to clients because it calms our nerves. Because we say, well, they're not seeing the value yet. I better give them more stuff. I better
Yeah.
give them more stuff. I really hope they like this. I better give them more stuff. And all you're doing is actually cannibalizing the work that you're doing currently at the end of
Yeah.
it.
No, it's such a good and it's so funny because hearing you talk about it, like I know that I actually have, a similar mindset, but I just don't live by it because I think it's the pressure of the deliverable component where I've learned like with the acceleration of AI that a marketing agency it's becoming even more prominent that it's not about deliverables like and And that's part of the reason why I don't send monthly reports to a lot of my clients when it comes to like, this is what we did. Because at the end of the day, they're going to look at it and most of them are going to say, I don't care. And all I care about is are we making more money or is the goal, the end goal like happening like right now as we speak? So I think that that's like the big thing is how do we just provide the most value without, just yeah, I mean, who cares? I mean, I think reporting is important, and we do that. Like, I mean, usually it's quarterly, but I think that a lot of times it just overwhelms them, and it says, okay, well, why are all the reports they look so good, but our revenue is stagnant? Like, I think for us, I want to get to the point where it's so obvious that what we're doing is helping. More visitors are landing and converting, or their organic traffic, which obviously is changing all the time now, is improving. So I don't know. I just think that's such a good point, and it's just like it's an important piece for me to kind of live by and realize as I continue to grow.
Absolutely. Okay, so and a few points that we're getting close to the end, and I feel like I
Yeah.
probably should have made this an hour and a half long episode, because I could keep chatting here, but reporting is important, and it is most important to report on the things that the client cares about, those results, those outcomes. Monthly probably is a good cadence for that. One thing we also need to consider is that those other things, like those other items, don't matter to the client, but sometimes it can take a while for us to get to the outcome, and the client needs to know that we are doing everything we
Just yeah.
can to get to that point. So I think of it in terms of like I'm really big into fitness, and I think about it in terms of like you're going to be, weighing yourself weekly and taking a progress pic every month or something like that. Um, if I'm doing that and there's no change, then I'm going to be like, well, what the hell? If I'm eating well every single day and counting my calories and working out every single day, then that tells me I know that at my next weigh-in things are going to be better, and I know that at my next progress pick there's going to be a difference because I'm actually putting in the reps. And so those those smaller items, communicating that to the client can be very important so that they know that you're just putting in the reps, because there are so many agencies out there that will and they're huge. They're sales machines, and then they have a bunch of really, really junior talent and they don't get results. And their whole model is sign the $2,000 retainer and then we'll talk every month. And they churn clients every 3 to 6 months because nothing ever happens, and there's no one's putting in any reps. And so I do think it's very important from a client experience side of things that the client
Yeah.
understands that there's work being done, but that's where the education piece comes in. That's where you actually have to tell a story with it and say, like, here's what we did this week, but here's why we did it, and here's why it matters.
I got you. That's a good
Versus
point.
just like, here's a list of stuff, and the client's like, I don't know what that is. Then there's
Yeah.
no value there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Uh, So, Nick, what I think that you should do after we end the podcast here is you should think about what your soft ICP is, right? Because that's going to unlock, once you identify your soft ICP, that's going to unlock where you should focus time building systems, right? There's no
Mhm.
sense in systematizing a whole bunch of things that in a year's time you're not even going to be doing anymore. We actually want to focus on where the leverage is. So pick a soft ICP and then start testing that soft ICP by reaching out to that soft ICP and sending them that landing page that you're going to create with what the offer is and solving their specific pain points. And then I guess when it comes to the reporting piece, if you have that soft ICP, you can tailor the reporting piece again all around what they actually care about and not what they don't
Yeah.
care about. So it's not generic, because when you have clients across all different industries, the reporting has to be generic because you're solving so many different problems for so many different people. Meanwhile, if you're solving a very specific problem for a very specific subset of people, that report can be tailored so closely just to what they care about and nothing else. And then you can create
Yeah.
systems around that. You can create onboarding around that. You can create education around that. You can start to create thought leadership content around that. And it starts to compound when you have that. So,
Yeah.
so next time we chat, you're going to have a soft ICP and we're going to see where you go with that.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Awesome, man. Any questions for me before we call it a day?
Yeah, 100, but I'll save them. No, I appreciate all the insight, and I think that it's just like really good points, and it's funny because you can definitely tell that what I'm going through is definitely a pretty common pattern with a lot of people. Because before I even mentioned some things, you addressed it. But I think, yeah, no, the idea of the ICP is really important, and I think that's why I've been struggling to create that system, is because the foundation isn't there for the system to be built on. So yeah, no, I think that it's you know, I agree with everything you just said, and it strongly resonates. Yeah. Again, I have a bunch of questions for you, and I know we're probably running out of time, so I'll definitely connect with you after. But no, I appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely do a follow up with you in a year's time, or maybe even less, to hear about your meteoric rise and see where things are at.
I can't wait.
Okay, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean.